Episode_number_13. After finishing the conversation with Salah, Alexander got up and went to the upper floor. They came in by knocking on the door. And quote, "Son, coming down. We sat by the people for a while." And quote. After saying this, Iskander came in and Imam Kachar stood up. She was not expecting them to come, and with one look on her face, Alexander was silent for a moment. His eyes were badly swollen. And quote, "What's the matter with crying, son?" Alexander patted his head. And quote, "No. He in." And quote. She spoke without meeting his gaze with extreme regret. And quote, "Let's go." And quote, "Come down. The doctors are also asking for you." Alexander hit his head once more. It was not Salah, which she vehemently denied. And quote, "Gee." And quote. He tried to lift the blanket on the sofa. Alexander stopped him. And quote, "The employee will pick up. You come." And quote. Seeing his face, the doctors also became confused. Regardless of the circumstances of the marriage, however, it was an AC family whom he had known for a long time and with whose wall he had a wall. Because of this relationship, being a daughter-in-law brought more responsibility on her. He himself used to see Imam from his childhood. To some extent she knew them too well. Those people are comforting him and talking to him. Then Alexander told him to rest. She sat next to the child in the room for a while, then she lay down on the bed and fell asleep. The employee picked up the intercom at the end of the night. Iftar time was near. Iskander and Taib were also waiting for it. Salah also arrived a few minutes before iftar. Sikander and Tayyab were also invited that night. After sitting with him for a while, he left saying God save him. At night he came back around 12 o'clock. Salah and his flight was at 11 o'clock. Before getting well, Imam came to give small gifts. Then Imam remembered the gifts that she used to bring from Karachi for this business. Imam was surprised when Salah went to sleep after meeting the doctor. And quote, "You wake me up at 10 o'clock. And quote. He instructed the Imam. And quote, "It's an 11 o'clock flight. Won't you be late?" And quote. Imam said after thinking for a while. And quote, "No. They will be reached." And quote. He said, closing his eyes. She sat watching him for a while, then she came back to the same room on the upper floor. There was no cow in the porch of his house. It was the weekend and he was definitely not at home. Could have been, Imam tried to guess. After 9 years it was very difficult to estimate. It was hoped that she could sit there and watch them come back. But by 10 o'clock no one had come. She came down with a heavy heart and wet eyes. There was no need to wake Salah. He was packing to go. Imam's heart became more and more troubled, so finally, it was time to leave the house once again. Outside in the porch, River was waiting in the car with Agara. Iskander Osman instructed Gara to accompany him to the airport. He was taking every precaution. Salah took the key from the receiver after putting the goods in the car. Imam looked at him with surprise. And quote, "We people are going to cry. Papa, come and tell them." And quote. The River tried to protest a little. Perhaps Alexander had given more instructions than was necessary. But one of Salah's words silenced him. And quote, "And now there is no need to show so much loyalty that I call Papa as soon as I leave my house." And quote. He was sitting in the village and said to her he was sure that he would do this as soon as he left his house. That's why he called Alexander's phone as soon as he left the gate. He wanted to engage Iskander's phone for some time. And quote, Papa. We were going out. So thought we'd talk to you guys. Salah said to Iskander. And quote, what's up? And quote, and quote, and quote, just talk to me. And quote, he said to Iskander before Iskander said. It is feared that Iskander will be shocked to see these coming days. If he is talking to them in the car, then why was he calling? However, doctors do not check someone's incoming call while talking to him, and even if they do, they are not suspicious. For the next 15 minutes he was talking to the doctor. Imam Kacha, sitting next to her, was surprised. But he considered it. He was not used to talking for such a long time. As soon as he became a talkative father. This wonder was also happening to the doctor. Alexander was busy with a few other people at the inner table. After 15 minutes of conversation, when Salah was convinced that Rarior had made several calls to Sikander, it would be time to call Sikander, or at least give up the next attempt. He will do it later, God forbid, and turned off the phone. Taib and Iskander's return was not expected before 12 o'clock, and now if they had spoken to them even 5 minutes after their arrival, they would have been too far apart. And quote, what was the need to come? And quote, seeing his phone turned off, Imam asked him. And quote, he wanted only his heart, want to refresh some memories. Salah said while holding the cell phone. And quote, how do you remember? And quote, he was surprised. And quote, remembering the first trip with you. And quote, he could not look away from her for a while. What does she say to this person that she doesn't want to remember this trip? He didn't travel for that, the few hours he spent in fear and uncertainty. At that time, a magnificent ghost appeared in front of him, and on the way, the ghost kept hitting him. Hands and quote, that journey was not pleasant for me, he said to Salah in a low tone. And quote, neither did I. And quote, Salah also said in the same way. It has been haunting me for many years. Let's see if it still haunts me. He smiled in a very soft way after seeing her. Imam remained silent. A few years ago, that night began to appear in front of one's eyes once again, and not only was the night in front of one's eyes, but also the glory. One of the problems of this night was closing with his wife. Another with his family. He lost both of them. The sun of the next morning was as always. His life was not the same. Sometimes she could think that she would think about this night only in pain, not in appreciation. Her eyes began to water. In the same way, the son was not aware of his tears today, but he was unconscious at that time. Without saying anything, he extended his hand and took her hand in his. Imam started wiping his eyes. The whole map that he drew of his life, he did not say this person. Life played with whom? Who had a relationship? Where did you come from? I don't know. The journey was going on quietly, but it was going on. And quote, now I am driving very carefully. Imam remembered his resh-raying from many years ago. And quote, the value of life has happened, now? And quote, he asked Salah while raising his hand. And quote, being careful because of you. And quote, he could not speak. Another break of silence. He came out of the city limits and the road started to feel foggy. The fog was not thick, but it was there. And quote, when did you ever travel alone on this road? And quote, Imam asked after a while. And quote, I go by car now if I have to go by car. I only came once a few months ago. He said. And quote, when Papa gave me your handwriting. What night was it? And quote, he groaned in pain and then laughed. And quote, there was hope which, in this night, I saw perishing in the flesh. Do I know what state you will be going through tonight? Much more than pain. A little less than death. But no one can call it pain. And quote, looking out the windscreen, what he wanted to reach was within reach. She also passed through this glass. With moist eyes, her neck propped up against the back of the seat, she watched him. And quote, all the way I was just thinking about what I was going to do. I used to think about what I will do in life. Allah has given me more life than I need. I did bad things with you. Bad things happened with me. I remember what I talked about with you on the journey. And quote, he smiled awkwardly and craned his neck for a moment to look at her. For a moment, Donev's eyes were met, then Salah straightened his neck. The journey began to be quiet. The relation that was between them, he was making silence as well. Words cannot be more meaningful than silence at this time. Imam also straightened his neck and started looking at the road. The fog was getting thicker, as if they are not on the road but entering the fog of their past. Deep, not being extinct, and not giving hand to hand. What was hidden inside, but what was there, it was buried, it did not come out. The ringtone of the cell phone startled them. Alexander's number was shining on the cell. Salah's hands grew up. Imam did not understand his aimless laughter. And quote, hello and quote. Salah said only this while receiving the call. It was a surprise. Iskander Osman's call did not want to come so late. Perhaps Rayur informed him about Salah's adventure on his arrival home. Salah lowered his voice. What Iskander was saying on the phone, he did not want it to reach the Imam. And quote, yes, yes, he used to say submissively. Iskander was raining on him in a bad way, and why he didn't rain. Making fools like Salah was a left-hand game, and this feeling was adding to the anger of Iskander. A little while ago, he had seen the missed calls of Riva on his cell lying in the doctor's purse, and after talking to him, he was drinking blood. Going to Lahore was the highest manifestation of his stupidity for him at that time, but the more satisfaction he felt in his eyes, the more it provoked him. And quote, stop being angry, Dad. And quote, we are both perfectly safe and traveling in comfort, he finally said to Alexander. And quote, did you threaten Zafar not to inform me? And quote, threat. I made a polite request, so please don't inform me at this time. You will be disturbed by looking at me. And quote, he used to say to them with great communication. And quote, my prayer is Salah. If your children are just like you and love you as much as you do us, then you will feel the pain of a father. He laughed. And quote, Papa, I will not give birth to children if I talk like this. And quote, Imam looked at him shocked at his sentence. And quote, Papa is praying that our children will be born soon. And quote, seeing Imam awake, Salah told him while talking on the phone. She blushed involuntarily, but she did not understand what time and manner of this kind of supplication there is. On the other hand, Sikandar was laughing helplessly after hearing his sentence on the phone. His anger started to subside. After many years he had to talk to Salah. In this way, he was now asking her where she was. Tell Alexander your limits in 4 times. Hung up the phone. And quote. Dad was getting angry. Imam asked seriously. And quote. There is nothing to be happy about. And quote. He replied. And quote. Why do you say that? And quote. As Imam tried to shame him. And quote. Because if I tell the truth, people won't let me do what I want to do. And quote. Kamal's logic was perfect and presented with utmost seriousness. And quote. Would anyone be hurt by your situation? And quote. And quote. My mood doesn't hurt anyone, but anger. And quote. It was useless to understand him. He was a ruler. She could guess now what Alexander would have said to her on the phone. They reached this service station almost before nightfall. Do you remember this place? And quote. Salrin. Gavi stopped and asked him. Imam saw this foggy place, where streetlights were busy fighting the fog and darkness. And quote. No and quote. He said to Salah. And quote. This is the place where you stopped and prayed. He opened the door and came down. Imam started looking at this place again with a surprised look. Now she was able to recognize him to some extent. She also opened the door and came down. A spider injected into his body. She was still dressed in a sweater and chadar. That room was changed, where Anu used to sit and drink. And quote. Tea and chicken burgers. And quote. Salah said to the man sitting on a chair, who took Jemiah and brought them inside and waited for Abu Ara. Imam smiled at her. And quote. What will you say now? And quote. And quote. He knew which way was his gesture. And quote. He smiled without saying anything. And quote. Last time we were sitting there. You prayed there. And quote. He was pointing to the different side of this room with his hand. Imam did not remember. There were tables and chairs in the room. There was still a lot of time in the Fajr call and now there was no one else except a few people working in the place. The tea and burgers at this place are not as good as they were then. The presentation was also very good, but neither of these two players could see the presentation. Both were reliving their past. It was not a matter of a few words or a few bites. It was a matter of life which was brought to a station like a train track. He used to play at this place, where the fork of the track was changed. Far, near, merged into one another, and now with another. A few new memories were made along the way. Their first journey down the road after their marriage, and these new memories started the process of blurring old memories. After placing Bill's money on the table, he stood up. Imam also followed him. Salah caught her hand in his right hand. Imam saw his face. A soft smile appeared on his face. Imam, where is that pistol? And quote. She was surprised by his question while coming out of the building. Did she remember that? She laughed. Abu has it, he said to Salah. And quote. Can you really play? And quote. Salah did not know what to believe. And quote. Yes. And quote. Imam shook his head. But there is no Goliath in it. He flinched at her next sentence. And quote. I only had a pistol, she was saying confidently. He breathed helplessly. He could not guess whether the dust in his eyes was caused by him or Allah. As much shock and anger as this pistol gave him, if he had guessed that it was without bullets, Salah would have arrested Imam by the hands of the police. Why did he look so confident with the pistol in his hand? He now understood. And quote, "You were gone." And quote, Imam was laughing. And quote, "No, I didn't, but I was shocked." And quote, "You were crying all the way. I could not have expected that you would pull a pistol on me. Your tears betrayed me." And quote, he was a little nervous now. Imam laughs. He was living in Donavu Abgai. Even after sitting, when he was looking out of the windscreen instead of staring, Imam said to him, and quote, "Why isn't Gavi starking?" And quote, and quote, and quote, "Why don't I think that your letter can be empty? Why don't you think?" And quote, he cried once as he grew up. And quote, Abd Runa Mut. And quote, Imam asked him, and quote, "So what would you do if you found out?" And quote, and quote, and quote, "I will refer you to the police," he said while staring. And quote, "Aren't you ashamed?" And quote, Imam Baghdadi. And quote, "You came, when you pulled out a pistol on me, I liked you." Salah also said in the same way. And quote, "Mosen was. You were threatening me." And quote, and quote, "Anyway, at least I didn't mind you holding me at gunpoint." And quote, and quote, "But I have not caused you any harm," Imam said in a defensive tone. And quote, "So what mistakes did I make?" And quote, and quote, Gary Flat was on the main road again. Imam was once again angry with him until he entered the borders of Lahore. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. She remained in a trance of Islamabad for the next 2 or 3 days. As much as she was afraid of going there, she felt that fear was ending a little bit, and the final result was yes, he is next to Islamabad was waiting for the tour. Whom and what time did she see in this guest room window all day long? She kept telling Salah for the next 2 or 3 days, and on the 3rd day she broke down on one sentence. And quote, Salah, and quote, "We cannot live in Islamabad." And quote, Salah was busy doing some emails with the laptop in his lap on the bed, when Imam asked him. He only from half an hour ago she was talking about Islamabad, and Salah was patiently listening to her and answering her. And quote, "No," and quote, said the busy man. And quote, "Why?" And quote, and quote, "Because this is my job." And quote, and quote, and quote, "Change your answer." And quote, and quote, and quote, "Can't change." He was silent for a few moments, then he said, and quote, "Can't I live in Islamabad?" And quote, and quote. This bar Salah finally took his eyes off the screen and saw it. And quote, "What does this mean?" And quote, he asked her very seriously. And quote, "I mean, I'll be there to visit you on the weekend." And quote, and quote. For a moment Salah thought she was joking, but she was not. And quote, "I cannot go to Islamabad every weekend," he told her with great patience. He remained silent for a while. Salah turned his attention to the laptop again. And quote, "Then you visit once in a month." And quote, he was more than satisfied with his sentence. And quote, "Sometimes they can't even come once a month." And quote, he said. And quote, "There is no problem." And quote, and quote, and quote, "You mean you don't care?" And quote, he forgot to mail. And quote, "I didn't say that." And quote, Imam said without structure. He had no idea that he would express his feelings so clearly. And quote, "Mummy and Papa are alone there. So, The old man cut him off. They are not alone there. Amar and Asri are with him. They are both out of Pakistan today. Another thing is that Papa and Mummy are having a big social life. They do not need your services as much as I do, Salah said to him very seriously. She was staring at the screen of the laptop lying on his lap for a while, then she growled, "I will be happy in Islamabad." That is, you are not happy with me. They were excited. She will be more happy. She was finally telling her preferences clearly. Papa says that I did not want to take you to Islamabad. I want to listen to my father. He asked helplessly. Look, if I send you to Islamabad, how long can you stay there? We have to leave Pakistan next year. He was making another attempt to understand her with love. It's okay, you're in Pakistan, won't you? Salah's heart is bleeding. No one in his life had ever shown so much heartlessness. I live in America and my wife is here, so I can't have such an abnormal lifestyle. He said this twice. She remained silent for a while, but after a few moments, Salah put his hand on her shoulder with great love and sympathy. Salah. You should marry again and take another wife with you. This time he lost consciousness. If it was a joke, it was absurd, and if it was a real suggestion, it would be extremely offensive. He was looking at her face in disbelief for a few moments. She was advising him for a second marriage within 3 weeks of the wedding so that he could be close to his mother's father. Listen, I understand you. Imam tried to say something to him, getting a little nervous from his reaction. Salah shook his hand from his shoulder in a big way. Caution. You even took the name of Islamabad in front of me, and keep your stupid advice to yourself. Stop licking my brain and go to sleep. He changed his appearance. Picking up his laptop, he used to leave the bedroom. In a world of extreme anxiety, the Imam does not understand what he is so angry about. At this time, there is no real measure of how foolishly she began to think in her love for her mother. After turning off the lights, he tried to sleep for a while, but he could not sleep. He used to think of a flat Salah again and again. After lying down for a few moments, she came out of the room with a sigh. He was working on the lounge heater, sitting on the sofa nearby. There was a knock at the sound of the door opening. What is it now? He said with extreme fear, while seeing Imam. No. I came to see you. She was a bit shocked at his stern question. Are you two enough? He spoke in a peaceful manner. If I have to, I will make it myself. He said in the same way. Are you two enough? She said in a conciliatory manner. If I have to, I will make it myself. He said in the same way. She sat down on the sofa near him. Without saying anything, he put his hand on Salah's arm and rested his head on his shoulder. It was an expression of regret. Salah did not express any objection. Considering it completely, he continued to do his work on the laptop, but it was a big problem. She is sitting so close to him, resting her head on his shoulder, and he looks at her. If only she was his wife. She was unquote. Imam unquote. His fingers rested on the bag of the laptop, then he took a deep breath and sighed. Unquote. How will I work if I sit like this? Unquote. 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 Are you asking me to go? Unquote. Imam refused. Unquote. Can I ask you to go? Unquote. He kissed her head. Unquote. You said very stupid things to me. Unquote. He said. Unquote. Did I know that you would be so rude to me? Unquote. He was shocked. Unquote. Bad Tamizi. What is bad Tamizi in me? Unquote. You must apologize for what you said to me. Unquote. She understood. She came to express regret. But here is the opposite. Imam raised his head from his shoulder and said to him. Unquote. What should I apologize to you about now? Unquote. Salah saw her rise. What did you believe? What pride? As he cannot do it. Excuse me. Unquote. Hidden eyes. She was asking again with toy. Salah shook his head in the negative as he kissed her hand. He did not want to see his head. Unquote. No. I will apologize to you. Unquote. He said, kissing her cheek again very tenderly. An involuntary smile appeared on Imam's lips. What was the pride that flashed in his eyes? Well, how could he say that? Leaving him, he said to Salah. Unquote. Well, now you apologize to me, because you have been rude. Unquote. Unquote. She was asking for reassurance. He smiled. She wanted a confession from a confession. Unquote. I'm sorry. Unquote. Salah said, seeing her face. Unquote. No problem. Don't talk about Islamabad in the future. Unquote. She said, accepting his apology in a very generous way. Salah's smile spread on his lips. Then the whole problem was Islamabad. Perhaps she was worried that he would not be taken there again, and she came to him under this fear. What was the size of the heart? And there was nothing for it. Whatever it was someone's child. He laughed. Unquote. What happened? Unquote. He looked at Salah in confusion. Unquote. No way. Unquote. Salah leaned forward a little and embraced her with great tenderness and love, and kissed her head and forehead, the way he used to see her at the door every day after coming from the office. Good night. Unquote. He used to say that God protects him. Unquote. Good night. Unquote. She got up from the sofa, wrapping her shawl. Opening the door of the bedroom, he saw Salah with his neck bent. He kept looking at him. He smiled in farewell. He also smiled in response. Imam entered the room and closed the door. He was looking at this closed door for a long time. A woman who is in a man's life is a good fortune, but it is not a good fortune. Where was the need for unquote? Good luck. Unquote. Asterisk. Unquote. Habib Saheb's wife made several rounds of my house. Every time she came with a piece of cloth for peace. They say we don't want dowry, just give a peaceful relationship. What did they say? But they used to beg. Imam's office also took their son. One day, the son also came to our house with my mother. He was growing up in front of my eyes. He sat on the four legs in the courtyard, bowing his head, looking at the red antelope floor, yawning and listening to the words of Saeed Imami, who had been living with the same silence for the past half an hour. His silence was hurting Saeed Imahi. It's not bad luck. It's not bad. It is possible to say that you have greatly honored me by marrying your daughter to me, or that your daughter is very talented. They were constantly open during the conversation. It was Sunday, and he came with Imam to store the rest of the things in the morning. He arranged to send electronics and other goods to a few charity organizations. Imam did not object to it, but these two men did not tell Saeed Imam that the goods were not at his house, but were being sent. It was morning and she finished all these chores and sat on a stool in the yard in the sun. Imam was preparing iftar and food in the kitchen. She used to do the same iftar today. Due to the sun, Salah took off his sweater and put it on a corner of the chalpai. Taking out a handkerchief kept in the pocket of his jeans, he wiped the slight moisture on his face. This was the fourth story of Imam's relationship, which he used to listen to. Imam, while stirring the basin in the pot, saw Salah from the kitchen window opening in the courtyard. He felt sorry for him. She could hear Saeed Ahmar's speech in the kitchen and to what extent her speech was being objectionable and she could guess it. 3 times she tried to taunt Saeed Imami with different pretexts, changed the subject. But as soon as she entered the kitchen, she started talking again in the courtyard. A tall young man. He will be only half a foot taller than you. And while describing the behavior of Habib Saheb's son, Saeed was touching the last limit of adultery. Salah's own height was equal to 2 feet and 2 inches, and being half fit meant almost 7.5 feet, which is not impossible to find, at least in Lahore, so it must have been difficult. I have not found Zira. And Imam said to Saeed Ahmar as a child. Apart from this, there was no other way for her to take them inside. And hey son. There is always a difference. Zero has to go. Saeed Ahmar said, standing up. Imam put Zira's abaya in a vegetable basket. For a long time, she used to keep Saeed Ahmar busy in search of Zero, then later she would assign more work to her. She was planning. And I will bring you water from the cleric. The same plan. His heart will be warmed by it. And what Saeed Imam said while entering the kitchen, was heard not only by Imam, but also by Salah, who was sitting outside in the courtyard. And why? What happened? And Imam asked in surprise. She was living in Bezan by making potatoes. And what kind of a stone heart is it? It has the capacity to mix in anything. And they were heartbroken. Now if you talk like this, he will mix it up. Don't do this kind of thing. It will look bad. Imam forbade Saeed Imam in a low voice. And why not? After all, we know that our daughter is not a waste. 1 in a million. The one we married. So what? And Sayyidah Amma Bharti will be worried about the loss of the following bag while doing so. And I told you no. And now he is fine with me. Imam explained to Imam. And you are very patient, son. I don't know why. You don't talk in front of me. What will you do later? And Sayyidah Amma was not convinced. Salah, sitting on all fours in the courtyard, took off his shoes. Keeping the sweater under his head, he lay down on the couch. The voices of Imam and Saeed Imam were still coming from inside, but Salah diverted attention from these voices. He was looking at the green curtained bell on the red brick wall. The smell was beginning to wear off, but it was still clean. A few pigeons flew from the roof of a nearby house and passed over the yard. One of them sat on the wall of the courtyard for a while. After a long time he found solace in the sun. There was no peace in the sun, there was peace in life. He closed his eyes. Then, after a few moments, he opened his eyes with a start. She was trying to place a pillow under his head in a very subtle way. He opened his eyes and said apologetically, "The neck goes down like you," he said, taking out Salah's sweater. Salah took the pillow under his head. Without saying anything, "He is folding her sweater." She went inside with her arms crossed. He thought about this kind of behavior, and he wants to behave like this. He closed his eyes again. And what? Has he gone to sleep? And what? Sayyid Imam asked the Imam who came in, seeing him from a child. And what? Yes, he is sleeping. And what? And what? Well, I thought about it now and you will understand. It. Why did it go away? And what? And what? Sayyida Amma was disappointed and worried at the same time. And what? Thak gya hi amami. Arpeni deka to hi katna kami kya hi. He has been doing things at home with the workers. Today is also very busy in the bank. Imam madam will be told in a soft voice. He closed the kitchen door. How little Salah's sleep was, he thought. And what? Yes. But. And what? The Imam slowly tapped the incompetent Sayyid Imami. Talk slowly, it will go away. And what? And what? Look, how much do you care about this? And one is that. And what? Sayyida Amma is angry. Imam Abu Bari kept praying. If she did not gossip like this about Salah, then Sayyida would consider her and what? Reputable and what? Now the problem is that Sayyid Imami did not know about Bathia, Salah's first wife, despite his trust in Aichin Dahania. Yes, Imam has started hiding from them. She was not as happy with Salah as she appeared to be, and the main reason for this impression was the complete silence of Salah, which he chose to talk about in the chain of imamate of Sayyid Imami. That's it. The reason for Salah's silence was the nature of the conversation that Sayyida Amma used to give him. One thing that Imam had learned through all this was that she should never complain about her husband to anyone else. Every word that came out of his mouth was very heavy on him. And what? Just for iftar and food, I have ordered so many things. Son, if you want to eat, then you make it, Imam said while knocking Sayyid Imam, who woke up to see the food being prepared in the kitchen. There were no hospitality arrangements in sight. Salah has forbidden. He doesn't say anything, Imam said while taking out the rice. And what? Before there was no one to cook it, but now there is. And what? And what? And what? Even if he is the one who cooks, he does not eat. But he is not fond of food and drink. And what? And what? You're not interested in anything, are you? And what? And what? And what? Anything. She fell in thought. And what? She likes the game and so on, but now she can't open it in her name. And what? You know how much I hate things like this. Imam told Imam. And what? But if he likes it, do it, son. And what? Imam did not say anything in reply. And what? Yes. And what? Was not easy. And what? No. And what? Meant listening to a long lecture by Sayyid Amma. He couldn't guess where the blood was coming from, but there was blood on his hand. He was looking at Hathelio in a world of pain and fear. Then he looked up and saw his white clothes. His clothes were spotless. Then the blood on the hand, and the pain in the body. He could not understand. A few drops of blood fell from his hands on the hem of his white shirt. Salah, Asa time is going. Pray. And quote. He was very proud. Imam was beside him, shaking his hand, keeping him awake. Salah looked around, then at his two hands. His palms were clean. His breathing was erratic. Imam shook his shoulder and left. Salah got up and went to his son. He dreamed what he saw. Sitting on the couch, he started reciting a few verses as he remembered the dream. After a long time he had a nightmare. The sun in the room was full. He involuntarily looked at the time on his bike. It was time for Asa congregation and he used to pray at home. Even as he was taking off his socks, he was still thinking about the dream. The Imam had brought his sweater and slippers from inside the ablution till then. And quote. How are you? And quote. Imam, while giving him a sweater, looked at his face for the first time. His face turned a little red. He checked Salah's temperature by placing his hand on Salah's forehead. And quote. There is no fever, it will be caused by sleeping in the sun. And quote. Salah said to him while wearing a sweater. Imam felt that he was in deep thought. To be continued.